Yeah, hello and welcome, welcome, welcome. We are gonna quickly let the people on Zoom enter. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Yeah, welcome to this exciting workshop. We are live already. And wow, it's amazing to see you all here. Hello, 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 hello. Welcome back. Wow, good midday, good middle of the day, good lunchtime. I'm just letting you know, the people who just joined on Zoom, we are live already. So if you want to be on the live, great. If you don't want to be on the live, just mute yourself because whoever speaks is going to be shown. So just that you know. And welcome, welcome, welcome one more time. It's really amazing to see you all here. And hopefully we don't have too many technical problems. Yeah. So I'm in Italy today. Italy is going through an incredible heat wave, but we're lucky we're in this big, big old building that you can't see right now. And you might hear opera singers practicing in the background. So let's see if that's happening, if you hear this on the live or not. Yeah, and with these words, let's get started on a topic that seems to be so uninspiring. Overcoming resistance and procrastination. And I'm seeing a couple of awesome participants from the Purpose Fellowship. Some of these elements here you know already. And like last time, one of you guys said it's cool to hear it again. But we are giving it a bit of a different twist today. So yeah, if you want, stay with us. And everyone else who's just joining, welcome one more time. Now, let's get started right away. The topic is overcoming resistance and procrastination. So how would you even do that? And what is this really asking? And our deep, sincere belief is that really we are talking about these two paradoxes of, am I trusting my body? Am I trusting these like immediate feedbacks that I'm getting, or am I trusting discipline? Right? So am I going for the disciplined route where I am ignoring my body to a certain extent and forcing myself to do something that maybe all of my cells are completely against, but trusting my head? So in order to kind of hack what this could be about, we have two parts always. So we have a little bit of theory, a couple of minutes of Astrid speaking, and we have a coaching exercise where we kind of dig deeper into solving that confusion. Now let's get started. And Purpose Fellows, you will know. Oh, first of all, sorry, before we start into the context, in case you don't know ARC, here we go. We are an international group of purpose-driven individuals who really want to build something in their life that inspires themselves and others. For many of us, that means having an inspired career, but it can really mean anything, right? So the way we do this, we are running events when COVID is over. And I'm seeing a couple of boot camp applicants. Hi, you're smiling. Thanks for your smile and your patience. Yeah, so we're running events, but we're also running online programs that are supporting, where we build community to support each other to really rock the things we actually want to rock. So if you're curious about that, we do have a newsletter, Thearc.site/love letter. And if you want to get started for real, just go on Thearc.site/coffee chat and we'll have a pretty long and intensive conversation about who are you, what do you want, what holds you back, and whether the Arc can support you. Now, end of PR block. Oh, and my phone just dropped. 1 second. End of PR block. And this is really what it comes down to. Purpose Fellows, boom, you know this. And it's really about the question, back to the question, what's our understanding? What's our identity? Are we the ant or the grasshopper? And some of you might know this story about the ant and the grasshopper, where I always struggle so much with, because it's like, is it a good story? Is it a bad story? Right? We don't know. And if you don't know that story, It's about two animals, and in summer, basically, the ant is preparing for winter. So the ant, as you can see on this little picture, is like collecting all the food that she needs and working super hard, while the grasshopper is just like playing the guitar and enjoying the time, living from day to day. And when winter comes, the grasshopper suddenly gets cold feet and knocks on the door of the ant and saying, "Please take me into your home and basically feed me." And there's different endings to the story. One ending that I know is the ant just says, "Yeah, please, welcome, come in," and shares all the food. And then boom, that's the end of the story. There's other ends where the grasshopper then plays for the ant in winter. So the ant has a decent level of happiness while everyone else is getting depressed, apparently, in the animal kingdom. And there's a really different ending where the ant just says, "Well, sorry, you're staying outside in the snow and I'm having this very cozy winter time." And the story is so wonderful because it really boils down to what is the source of so much anger and so much frustration in our lives, that we see people who are just like living from day to day and expecting to have the world evolve around them, whilst other people are working so hard and trying to prepare. And truth is, of course, there's a little bit of an ant inside of ourselves, and there's a little bit of a grasshopper. And the hypothesis we want to put on today is really both are so fine. Both are so fine. And it's more a question of identity, of who we choose to be, than it is a question about who is right. And this is an important thing, I believe, because this issue of procrastination so much comes with a big narrative of self-imposed feelings of guilt. Like, I should not procrastinate because it's a bad thing, because I shouldn't. This should is the source of so much error, because it's really not helping us in really deciphering when it's time for what. So let's go down the grasshopper path first, because what if your body was actually right? Like, what if procrastination is exactly the thing that your body needs right now? What if you have overexhausted yourself, right? At Thearc, we are firm believers of the body having a point, right? If you follow us on social media or elsewhere, you will know that really ARC is all about understanding the language of emotions. Understanding, like, we believe that emotions are really the feedback your body is giving you. And probably you'd all agree when we say, like, in the long run, it really doesn't make sense to work against our bodies. It's a primary source of unhappiness to work against our bodies. And we really try to decipher this feedback. We're like, why am I angry? Oh, something crossed my boundary and I want to stand up for something. I want to stand up for a certain value. That's what my anger is telling me. Why am I fearful? Well, it's because I have to pay attention to something. Something in my body is wanting to tell me that something is at risk of being overlooked. Like, better focus on this, right? And why am I sad? It's because it's really time to let something go, right? This is what we firmly believe in. So this session today is really about what are the boundaries to that. And that is when we come to the end. So what if our head was right? I think we all know situations when just following our animal brain might lead to bad outcomes. I guess everybody who ever spent time at the gym knows what we're talking about. When is it time for the head? What if your head was right? There are obviously long-term consequences to our actions and behaviors, and just and only following our body, basically just being sloppy, right, it obviously isn't always the most appropriate response if we want to do things like, hey, build something in our life that really inspires ourselves and others. I don't want to go into what are the pros and cons of each of these mindsets, because I think that's really an offense to everybody's intelligence here. But really what it all boils down to is this beautiful paradox, right? Oftentimes in yoga we learn, or in other wonderful circles, that we have to kind of listen to both head and body. And I totally agree with that. But I don't know about you, but sometimes I find it hard because they might just say opposing things. So it's kind of weird sometimes. If my body says, like, I really want to go to bed, but my head says, like, but I really should be doing my homework now for tomorrow. So we have a almost the same yet slightly different perspective on this. And it's more like this infinite dangling back and forth between these two paradoxes, right? Listening to what our head says, times for that are appropriate, and then listening again to what our body says. And basically not having to force us to be both at the same time, and maybe feeling guilty because we are either stepping over our body or stepping over our head, but understanding that it's perfectly fine to sometimes follow this and other times follow that. Now, that is the first thing. And one more point to add, that I feel what is important to allow ourselves is to understand that it's an art to really carefully listen to the subtleties of this, right? To not ignore either what the head says or what the body says, right? Or what the intellect says, or whatever you call it. But to actually be really cautious about this, because sure, our feelings are the feet in our world. Our feelings are the feedback our body has given us, but so our thoughts, you might argue, are the feedback our head has given us, right? So there's an art to being really conscious about what's happening, and I feel like the more we fine tune that compass, the better we are at mastering our day-to-day decisions. And this is really what can, and you probably will easily, being more intuitive is really what speeds up our decision making. Like making better decisions is something that obviously, like, boom, can have like this massive effect on literally almost any area in our lives. Now, having said that, here's what today's session is really about. So the conclusion would be, we don't actually have to overcome procrastination, right, or resistance. We just have to know when it's time for body and when it's time for the head. So when it's time to listen to what. So the challenge is no longer one of trying to, suppress one of the other, but it's one of discernment, is one of distinction. So let's try to find criteria based on what we can actually distinguish, right? So here we go. So how do you know? How do you know when is it time for what? And we would say number one, it's, as I said before, sensing in deeply to what's happening, right? And the way to interpret our body is really, we really just have to understand the language in which to communicate. So number one is like to really ask ourselves, what is the core of my resistance, right? And so bodies tend to communicate with us through feelings. So which uncomfortable feeling is trying to emerge, right? So actually, like, let that come out. It's like, okay, let me do some research. Let me do some research on what is happening with me, right? What is my subconsciousness trying to tell me? And the way it pops up is feelings, of course, like kinesthetic sensations. So sure, you know this word, but basically like in our bodies, or some kind of pressure or tension, or yeah, things that we have words for, like fear, sadness, anger, or joy, right? And the other thing that's coming up is in stories that are images in our head that are oftentimes accompanied by self-talk, like I'm an idiot, or oh, that's really stupid, or what the these kind of things, right? It's kind of like the inner world our brain is trying to construct for us. So it's getting to know the stories we are telling ourselves about that one particular behavior, that one thing we are postponing, that one thing we really don't want to do. That is sensing in. Now, how do we listen to the feedback our head is trying to give us? And I called it thinking it out. So we have sensing in and thinking it out. And it is basically trying to say, okay, if everything that my brain is making up right now is actually a story, right? If it's actually fabricated, what are the long-term consequences of the behavior when my body tells us to follow? What are the long-term consequences? Does it mean that, is it rather good or is it rather bad? Or in our words, is that making us unhappier or is it making us happier, right? And like that, it helps us to basically dissociate from that world that our brain is constructing for us, right? Trying to get to some sort of logic that is true, independent of the stories I'm telling myself. And these are these two things. Now, how to tie it together, we'll get to that. And this is basically it. So what if these are two opposing things, right? Like, so let's say I have a difficult conversation with a team member ahead, and I'm like really putting that up. I'm really procrastinating. I'm writing that email, say, hey, we gotta talk, right? So, and my body's really like, no, 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 no. And my head is like, you really should be doing this, right? So what if they're opposing or basically leading us to different sorts of behaviors? The thing that really is tying us together is the answer to the question of who do you choose to be, right? Who am I choosing to be? Because we have to understand every action shapes our future story, right? So what I mean by that is if today I choose to be a good person, today I choose to go to the gym, it's becoming a tiny bit more part of my identity than it was yesterday. And by choosing my behavior, right? We like to say my behavior is the strongest element that determines the story I have about myself, right? It's the active choices I make, right? They're in our world, they're more determinative of how and what we think about ourselves than the unconscious choices, right? It's a thing we could have another workshop about, I'm sure, but that's basically a belief we have. So if that's true, this is what ties it together, right? And so it's like, what is the underlying value I want to follow right now? What if it was not an unconscious decision to choose to procrastinate over to override something, right? It's perfectly legitimate to ignore my body for a little bit of a second, right? As long as I am actually, as the motivator for that is something that I am long-term, and my body long-term is in tune. And what could that be? So what would make sense? And I feel like it boils down to these two things. So is this behavior I'm actually putting off, that I have the behavior I have so much resistance against, is it motivated by fear or by courage? Or in other words, which part of this reminds you of who you really are? So when let's say, I think it's easy to understand when our bodies are like, no, I really don't want that. And let's go back to the example of me having to talk to a colleague that, oh my God, we have to have this very serious conversation about, I don't know, your performance. Let's just make something up. My body might just be so scared of the negative response. And as a result of that, put off the action, right? Whilst my head might say, look, Astrid, this is actually important. Like, you actually have to protect your company from bad behaviors. You really have to talk to this person, right? In that case, the head might be more motivated by courage than the body. Let's come up with a different example. Let's say, for instance, and this is also a situation that you might know, but I also definitely know, for years I was putting off to quit my job and to become an entrepreneur because I was scared, and my head was like, this is weird, you know, I don't know if you should do it, it's kind of risky. But my body was like, wow, I really crave for being more fulfilled again and for doing something that makes sense. Right? And it took me literally 5 years to arrive at a point where I was pissed off enough to finally follow my passion, right? And that was when my body was more motivated by courage, right? And I put courage here because it is something that is a strong thing for me. But you could probably also use the word love or contribution or just a growth, whatever you feel that resonates with you the most. So yeah, which part reminds you of who you really are? Is it the head or is it the body, right? So with these words, I hope you're ready. And the invitation is to try it out on ourselves if you want. So on this little slide, we have get pen and paper out. So if you want, boom, I have a pen and I have paper. And if you want, let's indulge together in a sweet little exercise to find out who we really are. I'm having the assumption that you are joining this video because maybe, possibly, there might be a thing that you are putting off. So if you want, yeah, let's all sit together in our chairs or whatever you're sitting on and join me in a little meditation of sensing in and thinking out. So, and I'm noticing how people on Zoom are getting ready. And if you're watching the live, feel free to get ready too. So, yeah, the invitation is to just really chill and sit back on your chair. And just to really arrive and take a couple of breaths. Let's everybody take a deep breath in. And out. And a deep breath in. And out. And the third time, a super deep breath in. And out. And in front of your inner eye, the invitation is to just imagine, really see clearly that one thing you're actually pushing off. One thing. Try to imagine the situation where you are actually doing this thing that you're putting off. And do a little bit of research in your body. See the situation and observe what feelings are coming up. What are the images that these feelings are accompanied by? And what are the words? What is the self-talk that you're experiencing while being in the situation? And if you like, open your eyes and just on your piece of paper, draw out the situation, draw a little picture. And if you like, write the self-talk next to it and give a name to the feeling that emerges while being in that situation. And let's take a couple of seconds for that. And try to really get to the core of what your body finds so repulsive or so scary about that. And let's take a couple more seconds. Like we say at the Arc, the truth doesn't need many words. Great, and it seems like most people on Zoom are also done. And let's close our eyes again. And imagine what we would do if we did not have this resistance. Imagine a situation where we would carry out exactly the action and how it would feel internally if there was no resistance. imagine the situation pretty clearly. What do you see? And if you like, put yourself into a body position that you would adopt if you were doing it, if the situation is not just in your inner eye like a screen, but actually completely around you. And do some research now in your body again. What are you experiencing? And what story this is accompanied by now? And if you like, open your eyes again and draw out that situation. Maybe it looks pretty similar, but also maybe the internal experience is slightly different or completely different. Draw out that situation and come up with a self-talk and the emotions that now this scene has been accompanied by. And while you're writing, think about which elements of these two same but different scenarios have been motivated by fear and which have been motivated by courage. Let's see if you can pinpoint them. And was it the head that was motivated by fear? Or was it the body? And was it the head that was motivated by courage? Or was it the body? And maybe it's quite confusing. So sometimes we don't have it so clear. So you can also just mull the two together for now and just say which elements in general. Now, as a third step, you can, but you don't have to close your eyes for this. The invitation is to really make a summary for yourself and to understand, who do I choose to be? Who would I love to be? Who am I longing for be? Which deeper value do I want to drive my actions? So it's not just about what you're doing, but also how we are doing it. So if you like, just get centered for one more time and really try to imagine what is actually that one deep value that I want to be a force of. What is that one deep motivation that really lies within me that wants to speak through me? And if that's what I follow, which action would result? Let's take a couple of seconds for that. And if you want, write down now, what is that one value, that one deep motivation that you're truly trying to be a force of? And if you want, also write down, what is the action that would follow? The what, the step, the concrete thing you're wanting to do or wanting to not do. And how are you choosing to do this? With joy, with force, whatever comes to you that is inspired. And while you're finishing, which I'm assuming you are, take a look at what you wrote down. And let's have a quick head and body check. So take a look and think about, sense in, is my body responding with an enthusiastic yes? My body goes, oh yeah. If yes, great. If it's a maybe or it's a clear no, we have to hack on. And let's also think about the head. Is the head responding with an enthusiastic yes? If yes, great. And if it's a maybe, then we have to hack on. Or if it's a clear no, we have to hack on. Right. So let's leave a couple of seconds to do that. And just evaluate. Maybe you want to change your answer. Maybe you've already found exactly the right thing. And sometimes this is when our real work starts. When we notice, oh wow, the way of thinking I'm applying isn't really working. It's not yet an enthusiastic yes. Or, it's more complicated than I thought. And the encouraging words I wanna give in this situation is, this is probably why we're so confused, right? Because our way of thinking is not leading us to exactly the results that leads us into the flow. But it's such a great point to actually start and like, okay, this is, and to really generate smart solutions. So in order to be economic with everybody's time, I'm going to proceed to the very last question, the very last thinking exercise, and that is, once you have a somewhat solution, try to just imagine that how the place where you're right now from your chair, what your trajectory is. Like, is it something you want to do in an hour? Is it something you want to do in 2, 3, 4 days? Just try to imagine the steps it's going to take from now to there. And the reason for this is that we really want to try and make it part of our imagined future reality. So just take a couple of moments, and wherever you are, whichever solution you packed for now, try to really imprint that. I'm like, okay, this is me now. And try to imagine a couple of milestones, you on that journey to behaving exactly the way you want to choose to behave. Let's take milestone number 1. Step number 1 on that journey. And let's take step number 2. And let's imagine how step number 2 leads us to step number 3, which is us actually implementing whichever it is we want to do or don't do, and see how that feels. When it's going to be, and what the situation is. Let's take one more deep breath in and out. And if you like, let's open our eyes together. Say hi, welcome back. So I want to congratulate everybody who went on this mini adventure of what's happening in our head. And sometimes these exercises work good for us and sometimes bad. So I'm curious, just for the ones who are on Zoom who I can see on a scale from 0 to 10, how, or 0 to 5, let's say this 0 to 5, how well did this work for you? And the thing is, it doesn't say much about like how good or bad we are as a person. It really just says how daring we have been into diving into the real issues. Like if we are facing real issues here, like this works. It's really hard. It's really hard, right? So there's no judgment with how good or bad we are. So, but I'm just curious, honestly, from 0 to 10, 0 to 5, how this worked for you. Where are we at? 5 meaning this worked super well. Yeah, 0 meaning this really didn't work for me. we have okay. See, we have everything across the spectrum so far, and we have one person who joined a bit late. So wonderful! Thanks so much for sharing. And what I want to share about these numbers or the ease at which this works is it's really a matter of practice. So it's a matter of practice how good we are at communicating with ourselves, right? When we are very aware of, like I said before, the subtleties that are driving our behaviors, we can really fine tune our day-to-day micro decisions. When we have a high numbness scale, a numbness bar, a high tolerance for feelings before they're like exploding somewhere up here, we find it a lot harder. Again, there are pros and cons for having a very, very subtle compass, because obviously the con is if you are exposed to big emotions, like if you're in a high stress environment, you probably want to get a bit of a high numbness bar just for survival. But we like to say like high numbness bar means we have a high potential for healing, a high potential for really mastering our triggers so we can lower it, so we can let ourselves actually come through and stand in that fire, but not having to be triggered, and still make these like better and wiser and more conscious, more mindful micro decisions, although we are surrounded by chaos. There's a really beautiful talk about this, by the way, by one of my favorite coaches on the internet. I don't follow a lot of coaches on the internet. Actually, I just follow one. His name is Jerry Colonna. And he has coined this phrase of standing still while everything else is on fire. And this is exactly what I think this almost meditative practice of understanding the subtle messages our head and our body want to give to us. So with these words, namaste everyone. And yeah, for the live people, we're going to finish the live soon, and we're going to go back to Zoom to have some privacy with everyone who's on Zoom. But if you had fun doing this, you're so invited to join us for one of our next workshops. And just to repeat quickly, you can have a newsletter if that's cool for you, where we send around regularly self-coaching exercises like these. Also, what is new is that we've been asked to put our content into workbooks. So we're going to actually design out of the masterminds, we're going to design workbooks so we can repeat these things at home. And if you're a trainer, you can basically use them for your own classes, etc. Please quote the ARC, but yeah, they're copyleft, as we like to say. So please copy the shit out of them. Right? There's no copyright. There's only copyleft for ARC. We have kind of understood that knowledge is not what makes us special. Anyways, so if you want to get hold of all these guides and handbooks, etc., sign up for the newsletter, because we're sending them around there. And yeah, if you want to be part of ARC, which, as you can imagine, is this, it's just so freaking special to us. Although right now we're not having a lot of events. Yeah, just join a coffee chat, and one of our team members will be on the phone with you to really talk about who are you, what is it that you're trying to build, even if right now you don't know exactly what that's supposed to be, what's holding you back, and if or how we can actually support you, or if we're going to recommend you somebody else. And with these words, boom, here are our social media links. And yeah, can't wait to see you guys soon. We're going to publish this on our blog as well. So if you want to recheck any video material, go for it. And that's it for now. See you on the next live, and people on Zoom, we're going to have some privacy soon. Bye-bye.